Hello YouTube and welcome to another Cisco tutorial. So in this video I'm gonna show you how to protect your Cisco devices against DHCP denial of service attack. So are you ready? Let's get started. So as you may know, DHCP is a very actually common protocol used on most networks. Okay, so it actually allows clients to get IP addresses and also default gateways and DNS servers. So let's imagine, for example, here I created a topology in my DNS tree. So here at the bottom we have a DHCP server configured in this Cisco router, okay, and here I have a DHCP client, which is actually Linux box. Okay, so first of all, let me show you actually the DHCP configuration in this Cisco router. Okay, so here I am on my router, Cisco router. So I'm gonna show you the version I'm using. So actually, as you can see here, I'm using version 15.9. okay, so if I want to show you the configuration of DHCP server, it's pretty easy. Show run, and I'm gonna filter on DHCP. So it's very basic DHCP configuration. Okay, so I have actually excluded some IP addresses. Okay, and I have also configured a DHCP pool called actually a client. Okay, so if you want to see the whole configuration, of course you can run show running config. So you see here the DHCP pool for the client, the configuration. So this is the network that is configured for this DHCP client pool actually, and also we are allocating the default gateway, which is here the default router with the address 192.168.1.1, and also we are actually allocating a DNS server. Okay, so if you want to see the allocated IP addresses offered by this Cisco router, you can just issue the command show IP DHCP binding. Here we go. So you can see here that we have actually allocated 2 IP addresses to our network. So if I go back to my network here, you can see that actually I have this DHCP client that get an IP address, but we have also this station Kali Linux, which get also an IP address via this switch here, switch 01, through actually this DHCP server here. We can confirm that if I go, for example, to my Kali Linux. Let's go to my Kali Linux and issue the command ifconfig, and I will do more here just to show me the first network cards. And indeed here we have an IP address. Okay, so this IP address that 1.222 is associated with this actually MAC address here, you can see, which ends of 2C. If I come back to my router and I can confirm that, so 222 is associated with the MAC address 2C that ends with 2C. So 222 is the IP address actually offered by the DHCP server to my Kali Linux, and this one here at the bottom 223 is associated to the Linux client. So let's verify that. I am going to my this Linux box here. Here we go, and issue the command ifconfig, and indeed it got the IP address that 1.223. Okay, so here I'm gonna actually issue an attack to this network via this Kali Linux box. Okay, and you will see the trouble that we can get in. Okay, so let's go actually to Kali Linux and issue the attack. So I'll go to my Kali Linux here, and in order to perform this attack I'll be using the famous tool Yersinia. Okay, Yersinia, and I'll launch it in the graphical user interface. Here we go. Okay, so Yersinia actually performs attack based on different protocols. So here you can see that I can perform an attack using the DHCP protocol. So I will click on DHCP here. So I will launch an attack. Here we go. So in order to launch actually a denial of service attack associated with DHCP, I just click here, send in discover packets. Okay, so remember the DHCP offers just 2 IP addresses, but when I click this option here, actually all the IP addresses will be exhausted in the DHCP server. So I'm gonna show you here. Okay, so the attack is launched. Let's go back to our DHCP server and let's see now the binding. So you can see here I get a bunch of IP addresses that has been allocated. Okay, a bunch of IP addresses allocated just because we are performing a DHCP denial of service attack. Okay, so let me stop the attack. So I will go back to my Kali Linux and click actions, list attack. I will stop all. Okay, so the attack is now stopped. But if we return back to our actually DHCP server running on Cisco router, I can see how many addresses has been allocated using the same command, but instead of binding I will use that pool, the keyword pool. So you can see now how many leased addresses has been issued. We have 250 actually IP addresses that has been leased. So if a legitimate DHCP client connect to your network and want to get an IP address, he will not get it because all the IP addresses has been exhausted in this DHCP server. Okay, so this is the denial of service attack performed by the Kali Linux here. Okay, so it's pretty dangerous thing to do in your network. So disclaimer, do not do that in production environment. Do it just for educational purposes and for material that you own. Okay, so now how can we actually prevent this kind of attacks? Okay, the attack performed here by Kali Linux, how can we stop that? Okay, so I'm gonna show you a pretty nice actually tool to perform that. This thing is called DHCP snooping that we actually must configure on this switch. So we perform DHCP snooping on this port here to limit the packets that are sent through this interface here. So actually here what will happen when we implement this function here in our switch, it will shut down this interface if the number of packets has reached a limit. So for example, we're gonna actually rate limit this interface to just 10 packets per second, and then when the packets exceeded this rate, this interface here gigabit 0/0 will be shut down. Okay, so I will show you how to perform that, but before that let me just clear the IP addresses that has been bind by the DHCP server. We can do a command clear IP DHCP actually binding. So now if I performed show IP address binding, so no IP addresses is released. So let's return back to our switch and show you how to perform actually what we call actually DHCP snooping in order to prevent this kind of attacks. So it's pretty easy. We go to our configuration mode or global privilege mode. Here we go, then the global config mode, and we issue the command IP DHCP snooping. Okay, but this command is not enough. You must add another command in order to enable DHCP snooping on the Cisco switch. We have to associate it with VLAN. So I will issue the same command here, but we add the VLAN in which we want to enable snooping. So here I have by default the VLAN 1, so I will issue it. Here we go. Now we have DHCP snooping enabled on the Cisco switch. So to verify that, let's go to the privilege exec mode and issue the command show IP DHCP snooping. Here we go, and here you get the output switch DHCP snooping is enabled, and here you can see that is also enabled on VLAN 1 here. Okay, so the very important two commands are necessary in order to configure DHCP snooping on the Cisco switch. First, you have to enable it globally, then you must enable it in the VLAN which is associated with your interfaces. Okay, and here at the bottom you see this option here, rate limit packet per second. So this is the function that we must implement in our interface here, gigabit 0/0, in order to rate limit this interface. So Kali Linux will not be able to issue this packet discover, this huge amount of packets discover. Okay, so let's go back to our Cisco switch and go to the interface in which we want to configure rate limits, and we issue the command here IP DHCP snooping. So if you do question mark, you see here limit, so DHCP snooping limit. So limits, and we are limiting rate, and now you must enter how many packets per second you want to actually enable on this interface. So let's say for example just 10 packet per second. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to our global privilege exec mode and verify that using the command show IP DHCP snooping. And here we go. Now at the bottom you can see that we have configured rate limit on this gigabit Ethernet 0/0. Okay, so now let's try to issue the same attack and verify that actually this interface here will be shut down. So let me first issue the command show interface, show IP interface brief. So you can see the interface here is up. Okay, so let's issue the command now, or the attack actually, using the same tool. So I will launch the attack here. Here we go. So send discover packets, denial of service attack. Here we go, and the attack is launched now. Let's go back to our Cisco switch, and here you can see that actually the CPU hags. It causes our switch to hog. Okay, so let's stop the attack. Stop all. So you can see here a message: DHCP snooping received 10 DHCP packets on interface gigabit 0/0, and the interface has changed its gigabit interface to down. So let's verify that. So if issue the command show IP interface brief, you can see now the interface has been shut down. Okay, and and if we go to our router and see how many DHCP banding has been issued, we still have no IP banding, because actually the process that we have actually done has prevented our DHCP server to allocate IP addresses to the Kali Linux attacker. Okay, so this is the better way to do in order to configure DHCP snooping on the switch. So remember two commands in the global privilege exec mode, global config mode, sorry. Okay, and then on the interface you must actually apply rate limit for the packet per second. Okay, so that was just a brief introduction how to actually prevent DHCP denial of service attack on a Cisco devices. As always, I hope it has been informative for you, and I want to thank you for viewing. Bye bye.